Did you know that when European explorers first came face to face with the bronze sculptures of the Benin Kingdom in the 1800s, they were so stunned by their perfection that they refused to believe Africans could have made them? Let that sink in. The detail was too precise, the craftsmanship too advanced, the artistry too confident. So instead of accepting the truth, they invented a myth. They claimed the bronzes must have been made by lost Europeans or ancient outsiders who somehow wandered into Africa and taught its people how to create greatness. Because in their worldview, such mastery, such genius, could not come from Africa. But here is the truth they could not erase. The Benin Bronzes were not the work of lost Europeans. They were not gifts from foreigners. They were created by the Edo people of the Benin Kingdom, in what is now southern Nigeria, by African hands, African minds, and African mastery, using techniques that rivaled anything produced in Europe at the same time. A kingdom of unmatched artistry. The Benin Kingdom flourished from the 13th century until 1897. It was not a fringe society. It was a powerful, organized civilization with a complex political system, long-distance trade networks, and a cultural sophistication that still leaves historians in awe. At the center of this achievement stood the royal bronze casters. These artists were not casual craftsmen. They belonged to elite, hereditary guilds that served the Oba, the king of Benin. Their work recorded history, preserved memory, and projected power. Every sculpture was intentional. Every plaque was a message. Every figure was a historical document, cast in metal. This was art with purpose. They used a method known as lost wax casting, one of the most demanding metalworking techniques ever developed. First, the artist sculpted the piece entirely in wax, carving astonishing detail, facial expressions, coral bead regalia, woven fabrics, symbols of rank and authority. That wax figure was then encased in clay. When heated, the wax melted away, leaving behind a hollow mold. Molten bronze was poured in, filling every microscopic groove the artist had shaped by hand. When the mold was broken open, what emerged was nothing short of extraordinary. Bronze heads with lifelike expressions, plaques capturing motion, hierarchy, and ritual. Details so fine they preserved textures, patterns, and emotion itself. This was not primitive art. This was precision engineering, fused with deep artistic vision. The guild system, guardians of excellence. What made this possible was the Benin guild system, known as Igun Eronwan. Knowledge was sacred, skill was inherited, excellence was non-negotiable. Young apprentices trained for years, sometimes decades, before they were allowed to master the craft. They studied metallurgy. They learned how different metals behaved under heat. They memorized exact temperatures, mold compositions, and casting techniques. They understood not just how to create bronze, but why it mattered. This was science. This was discipline. This was legacy. And it was entirely African. When Europe arrived and couldn't accept what it saw, when Portuguese explorers reached Benin in the late 1400s, they described a city unlike anything they expected. Benin City had wide, orderly streets, massive earthwork walls stretching for miles, and a palace adorned with bronze plaques that told the story of an empire. At first, Europeans were impressed, but as centuries passed, admiration hardened into denial. By the 1800s, racist theories of racial hierarchy dominated European thinking, and suddenly, the existence of sophisticated African art became a problem, because it contradicted everything they wanted to believe. So they explained it away. They claimed the bronzes came from ancient Greeks, from Phoenicians, from Portuguese craftsmen. from mythical lost Europeans. Every theory shared the same foundation. Africans were incapable of creating greatness. The evidence was right in front of them. Heavy, cold, undeniable bronze, but prejudice was stronger than truth. And then came violence, the tragedy of 1897. If stories like this matter to you, stories of African brilliance, resilience, and truth, this is where I ask you to subscribe. Because these histories were buried on purpose, and they deserve to be told fully, honestly, and without apology. In February of 1897, British forces launched a so-called punitive expedition against the Benin Kingdom. What followed was devastation. Benin City was invaded. The royal palace was burned. Thousands of priceless artworks were seized. This was not accidental loss. This was systematic cultural theft. Bronzes that had preserved centuries of history were ripped from their home and scattered across Europe and North America. Museums filled their halls with African genius, while denying Africans their ownership. Why this story still matters? Here's the question we must ask ourselves. What does it say about the world when African achievements are doubted, stolen, and then displayed as world heritage, while the people who created them are pushed to the margins of history? The Benin Bronzes are not just art, they are proof that African civilizations developed advanced technologies independently, proof that genius has always lived on this continent, proof that the narratives of African inferiority were lies constructed to justify domination. When Europeans refused to believe Africans made the bronzes, they revealed something important. Not a truth about Africa, but a truth about themselves. The legacy lives on today. The descendants of those original bronze casters still live in Benin City. The guild survives, the knowledge survives, the memory survives, and slowly, far too slowly, some of the stolen bronzes are returning home. Each return is more than restitution. It is an admission, an acknowledgement of truth, a crack in centuries of denial, a testament to African resilience. The story of the Benin Bronzes is a story of survival. Despite colonization, despite theft, despite generations of deliberate erasure, the truth endured. When you look at a Benin bronze today, you are looking at evidence that African ancestors were scientists, historians, engineers, and artists of the highest order. You are looking at a legacy that was never lost, only taken. These bronzes remind us that we come from greatness, that excellence is not new to us, it is inherited. And they leave us with one final question. The bronzes already proved that Africans could create masterpieces centuries ago. The real question is, what will we create with the legacy they left us?